Members of the white supremacist Patriot Front group were arrested over the weekend traveling to a gay pride event in Idaho. A concerned citizen called the police to report a, quote, little army of men loading into a moving truck. Officers arrested dozens of Patriot Front members, and they were charged with conspiracy to riot.
According to officials, the apparent leader of the group carried a 7-page document outlining a detailed operational plan to riot at the Pride event. The men traveled with shin guards, shields, helmets, at least one smoke grenade, and a, quote, long metal pole. Joining us now to discuss is an advisor at the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, Jonathan Lovitz. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So what do you think of the lunatics? Was this an example of the police perhaps acting too aggressively? Because it seemed as though they were arresting based off of informants and perhaps surveillance that they conducted, but not necessarily because these people had yet done anything wrong. What do you think of this? Was this them acting too preemptively, or did they strike the right balance here?
This was law enforcement doing exactly what we need them to do, which is to keep our communities safe. It is not lost on anyone, especially the LGBT community, that this attack could have very well happened on the exact same day and anniversary of the Pulse nightclub shooting. We are still mourning those 49 lives, and we are still committed to protecting our communities in all 50 states. So the law enforcement, whether state, federal, and all the investigative agencies involved did the right thing. You listed some of the things that were in that truck with them. You're not bringing that kind of material to be an innocent bystander. You're there to cause problems and ultimately to cause harm on people simply trying to live their life and celebrate everything that's great about being an out American. So they did what was right, and we can only expect to see more of this kind of small-minded violence from small men. It's what they do, but it is not going to be something that we tolerate, and certainly not something that law enforcement is going to allow in this country.
That's right. An awfully pro-cop and pro-surveillance stance, though, from somebody who I imagine represents a community that has historically been cracked down on quite hard by cops who are abusing their power.
I don't really think this is about surveillance. Conspiracy is a crime, right? We didn't make this up. This isn't new. This isn't a part of the surveillance agency. As a criminal defense attorney, conspiracy, you conspire, you have a plan to commit a crime, and in conspiracy, once you make any substantial step towards that plan. Here, we have an army of people. They have planned, they have gotten together, they're dressed similarly, they're coming with weaponry, they have loaded themselves into a van, and they are headed to the location. That is a substantial material step. There's nothing preemptive about it. I wouldn't really contribute that to surveillance. Also, I think a worthy note is this has happened before, right? This has happened a year before.
But we don't, was it these same people involved? Like, we don't arrest people based off of...
But we do arrest people for conspiracy.
Yeah, we do arrest people, but ultimately, like, what will actually happen is this will percolate through the courts, and they'll decide whether this was appropriate to do.
And I think we will find that it will be, right? There's a Pride event. First of all, we've had, like you said, the Pulse shooting. We have significant reason to believe that Pride events are in danger, and we see initiatives like this happening. And I don't think this was the only thing. We've seen, libs of TikTok sharing all these different things happening throughout Pride Month, and we do see people showing up to disrupt these movements. So yeah. I want to say that there is a reason why people are on guard. But in something like this is not just profiling people or assuming. It's not like it was just rhetoric and they were talking about it online and then they went to their homes and rounded them up. This is someone calling in because, hey, I saw an army of these people loading into a truck, dressed literally like a little army, and they're going towards us. So I think that this veers off way from just, surveillance or a little tip or the police, engaging in overreach. I think this is something far more significant and substantial.
But isn't this the type of surveillance? Like we've seen the police historically treat the LGBT community quite poorly.
The police treat every marginalized.
That's absolutely true. I do want to bring our guest in, though. I mean, what do you think about this? Do you feel in any way squeamish about the fact that this is an example of cops in your telling, doing their jobs quite well, which I think, might be somewhat hard to square with a lot of the other rhetoric surrounding the degree to which we ought to perhaps defund or demilitarize the police. In this example, a relatively militarized police force, in your telling, did the right thing.
But there are bystanders who made the call. I think that's
exactly
relevant.
Right. We owe community members, we owe the people who made that phone call, who found that tip, the ones who, just as you said, are looking out for the fact that all marginalized community have been under attack, not only by bad apples in law enforcement, but more importantly by bad actors in America who want to cause us harm. And that's true of queer people, of Black people, of Asians, of those with disabilities, you name it. And this is an innocent bystander doing the right thing. As a former New Yorker, I know that when you see something, you say something, and you let the you let law enforcement do what they have to do. This was not some, we can't falsely equivocate this to say some hateful preacher screaming on the sidelines of a pride like we have to deal with all over the country. This was an armed militia of malefactors who wanted to cause real harm, and they were stopped in their tracks before that could happen. That's
Right.
exactly how this is supposed to work. And when adjudicated in court, we will see what happens to them. But people should be on notice that you do not get to terrorize minority communities across America while they're simply trying to live their lives.
Also this weekend, more than 400 March for Our Lives rallies took place across the country in response to the deadly shootings in Buffalo, New York, and Uvalde, Texas. The organization was launched by survivors of the mass shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas in Parkland, Florida. Jonathan, you're from Florida, and you also participated in a March for Our Lives event in Philadelphia. What sort of firsthand experience do you have? Do you support the things that the March for Our Lives folks are advocating for, and what specific things do you hope to see accomplished there?
Absolutely. As so many of the organizers of March for Our Lives, including many of the young people who are really heroes from the Marjory Stoneman Douglas shooting, those survivors are saying, this time feels different. And it does. Look what's happening. This is the first time in years the Congress is going to take up 4 different pieces of legislation: ERPOs, assault bans, safe storage, ending preemption, which is essential. I mean, these are the kinds of common sense, absolutely bipartisan public safety measures that we can take, and they're coming as a reaction to what's happened. We have hit that tipping point, and if we continue to do nothing and say that the cost of doing business in America is more dead kids, that is not the country that any of us want to fight for and live in anymore. So I believe that this is a truly wonderful and inspiring awakening moment. And once again, the youth will save us. And how beautiful that it's young queer kids, young Black kids, young kids from every kind of community in America saying, this is not isolated to any one of our neighborhoods. This is happening everywhere. And it's going to take a solution that protects us everywhere.
Which I think is also a reflection of how big the problem has gotten, right, and how long this has gone. That so much of the youth are the main people involved. These are the people that are becoming activists and getting involved early. I know when I was in high school, I was not, at protests, I was not leading marches, and I probably because my lived reality didn't require for it. But now you have the generation of the youth that have been in drills. They said they've been in shooting drills since they were in kindergarten, and now they're getting ready to go to college. And so that's what's created this movement. So I think, it's important to recognize that and see how that helps us go forward. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's such an important moment for states to be paying attention to what's happening on this move for, this national momentum around smart, common sense gun safety. No one's coming to take your guns. No one's coming to restrict your rights. They are coming to take warfare off our streets and to make sure that people such as women in domestic abuse situations or minority communities who are facing external threats can take advantage of ERPOs and red flag laws. But these things only work if the states have the mechanisms in place to accept the sort of federal help that's coming through these bills. So it's going to take all 50 states working in concert to say no more dead kids. And I can't believe we're still having to convince legislatures that their kids are meant to be protected. I can't think of anything more essential to their job description. And if they don't want to do it, get out of the state houses.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of nobody coming to take your guns, I mean, I guess nobody's coming to take my guns, though it is incredibly hard for me, a pregnant mom-to-be, to get my gun license. NYPD is not giving me a very easy time in terms of allowing me to use my Second Amendment rights to keep a gun in my home. So I'm hopeful that New York will get a little bit more sane on that because I think I'm highly qualified to protect my family. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for joining us today. I really appreciate your perspective. We'll have more Rising after this.